You're watching PEGRI TV, Rhode Island's public access channel.
The wheel is turning and you can't slow down. You can't let go and you can't hold on. You can't go back.
Hello and welcome into my Wheelhouse. It is May 13th, I believe. We are in the conference finals of each conference. We got 4 teams remaining, the final 4.
Wow, we actually have no basketball for a day.
Yeah,
or
we
two.
got the
No, we got
final,
games on night.
our final day of multiple games was yesterday.
Those are
on
great
Sunday.
game sevens.
Well, all those
Fantastic game
people who
sevens.
said that basketball was a stale product in the first division round, they're eating their words now because this has been some really good basketball.
Fantastic,
We got a lot to talk
fantastic basketball. The second round, that
Some pretty poor shooting though.
it was close probably
Look
to
at
what everyone
slugfest.
expected.
yeah. It was playoff basketball. It was playoff basketball.
Tomorrow will be the NBA draft lottery. There's a lot riding on that. We'll do some obituaries, if you will, on the teams that lost over this past week and preview what we're coming up for the finals.
All right,
Okay, let's go.
Okay, the Boston Celtics,
we
the
can wait for this.
only one of the 4 series that wasn't tightly contested, bowed out against the number 1 seed Milwaukee Bucks, 4-1 in the series. It was behind the likes of Kyrie Irving shooting 30% from the field and less than 20% from 3 for the final or all 4 losses. Among countless things that went wrong. How do you assess the blame, and what are the biggest factors in the Celtics' loss?
Oof. Well, I think Terry Rozier said it best about a month and a half ago. He said, as Kyrie goes, so do the Celtics. Yes. And I think Kyrie, unfortunately, kind of checked out in the last couple of games of that series. And you could tell their body language wasn't right, their level of aggression wasn't right, and it just became pretty unwatchable. It was pretty sad to watch towards the end. It just seemed like they didn't have the confidence that they needed to even compete.
It bothered me, and especially after they peaked in that game 1, where you thought, yeah, there it is. We saw it. We saw what it could be. But and I waffle back and forth. I see 2 distinct scenarios for the team going forward, and I'm torn between the 2 of them. Kyrie really bothered me. I think you have to accept that team embarrassed us in a lot of ways, especially off the bench. I mean, Hill and Connaughton and Ilyasova embarrassed our bench. I mean, that bench with attitude we had or whatever it is, that was embarrassing what they did to us. Connaughton, he's not a big-time player, but he came up with double figures rebounds every game. And what I didn't like about Kyrie is he took no accountability for his poor play. He in his exit with his post game, he's credited Milwaukee for his brilliance and his coaching. And
Said he can't wait to see
and
them
I'm moving
in
on
the
to the next
Eastern
thing.
Conference Finals.
So I caught this quote by Larry Bird in 1985 when they got beat 4 in a row by the Milwaukee Bucks. And Larry Bird, after that series, when he was at the podium, he said, "I've never been this embarrassed in my entire career. We embarrassed ourselves, and I'll live with it for the rest of my life." That's how Larry Bird approached this thing. And you got Kyrie standing there, I'm moving on to the next thing, and he takes no accountability for his performance in that series. That really bothered
That's
me.
quite the contrast in players as far as passion is concerned.
Yeah.
You could obviously
And why players don't buy into, why players
obvious-
bought into Larry Bird and didn't buy into Kyrie.
Kyrie is obviously rather despondent and aloof in terms of his level of passion towards the winning and the losing, rather than maybe the journey of basketball itself.
I don't think-
he's talked in the past. His response to why he was playing the worst basketball in his career was "I don't care."
He said,
Before
"Who
the
cares?
series,
Who
before
cares?"
the
Yeah.
series is over, I don't care.
I don't
And
know if despondent's the word for it though. Like despondent is the word for Joel Embiid just not knowing what to do with himself after yesterday's game, crying. I think Kyrie's almost borderline apathetic. Like,
yeah, it's both. It's both of that. I mean, but you compare those, it's very, very different because we've seen a lot of teams pack up their bags and go home, and the majority of the leaders on those teams, their reaction would induce, just in terms of from the perception of a fan, the image of them caring a lot We see Jokic saying, "It was my fault. I didn't do enough. I need to be better.
You see Embiid breaking
I plan
down.
on coming better." Embiid is physically and emotionally tapped out. He's ransacked with the dread that he
you
has
see
that he
the
just
others
lost and he couldn't
yeah.
win his team.
And you
that
see
game.
the other players
Almost like
respond to
heart
Embiid,
sick
with
almost.
the sincerely giving him hugs, the other team and
Yes.
stuff. Where Kyrie, what did he do before he even talked to any player on his team? He was gone to the other bench, just like the other game.
Yep.
He left the building virtually while the game last 5 seconds. That's really a lot of body language there. When you stand up and walk to the other team and start congratulating them while your team is about to lose, before you say a thing to your team, you should commiserate with your team first and kind of wander over, not like, hey, I'm the big.
Well, in
whatever.
a previous game, he left the floor and went into the
That's
locker
what
room
I'm
with
saying.
10 seconds
That's
left.
horrible
Yeah,
body
yeah,
language.
It's terrible.
To leave.
It's
One
terrible.
thing, not in his defense, but when Kyrie was playing, it wasn't that long ago. We were very happy with how Kyrie was playing. Certainly in Game 1, mostly in the Indiana series. And I looked up what he shot in the Indiana series, and in 3 of those games, he was 17 for 49 in the Indiana series. So the shooting
But
per
his
se.
defensive effort.
But what I'm saying is
everybody.
everybody kind of pointed at the shooting
Yes.
as being, that's what they were hanging on him. But that really wasn't it. That's what I'm saying. It was his play.
And we see it in a different series, and not to mention too many other series, but Damian Lillard shot like crap
Yep.
yesterday, and he impacted the game in so many other ways. Like if your shot's not going in, go and crash the boards or make some plays for other teammates. Not only was he shooting like 1 for 16 at one point in the game 2 games ago, but he also had 0 assists at halftime. So it's like, how are you trying to help the team, and how are we supposed to think that we're better with him?
At the same time, I understand how bright the negative aspects of those 4 games will shine in comparison to the larger sample size of fantastic play from Kyrie Irving. This is the best regular season of Kyrie Irving's career. His efficiency is unmatched by any point guard in the league, essentially, other than like maybe Steph Curry, but because of the lack of number of games, Kyrie's efficiency is up near the top. His defense has been better than it ever has this year, and coming into the Indiana series, a lot of those things were translating over, and we had quabbles and issues with his off-the-court antics and his inability to process what needs to be kept in-house and what should or not be communicated towards media and how to communicate with the media, him challenging himself to be a leader and how he wasn't good at it. He learned a little bit in some areas and then took 4 steps back at other times. And that was all a big headache, but there was a consistent base of, wow, this is a kind of a nuisance. But on the court, you were seeing a higher level of escalated play. It's just that, and I understand what you're saying. He slacked shooting, but he was playing. It continued to transfer
I'm not
to playoffs.
criticizing.
And then
I'm
this
saying he
game,
was
it
actually
terrible.
playing well when he was shooting poorly.
Right, exactly. So I think that a lot of the negative repercussion and discussions that have really roused the Celtics fan base in general in the past week have been a little bit dramatic, and that's okay. That's okay. They can be dramatic right now, but I would say if you poll Celtics fans, 8 out of 10 Celtics fans says they'll drive Kyrie Irving to the airport. And I think that there's absolutely an argument behind that because
of his attitude.
Because of his attitude, and
Not
because
just because of his
and
play.
because I understand that you want top 20 talent. You want a top. I think Kyrie's probably on like the 11th best player in the league. You want players that are that high on the totem pole on your team. I understand that some players come with a locker room cost, and then that will transition them lower up and down the scale. Their play and how they rise to the occasion in the postseason can rise them up higher on that scale. So it's an unusual balance. So moving forward,
Yes, I see the 2 scenarios.
how do you, with compounding all of that together,
It's a flip,
how do you see it going? And how would you prefer to go if you could have the negatives that impact Kyrie being a bad impact on the Celtics, maybe trying to change those so you can eradicate those out of the way?
I think there's a clear path, but there's 2 paths. There's the old Yogi Berra. There's a fork in the road. You have to accept that Kyrie failed to connect with the young talent on the team. Yes. He did not connect with those guys. It's either Kyrie stays and those guys go, and that's Tatum, Rozier, and Brown, because they didn't connect with Kyrie, because the other guys, when you see Smart defend Kyrie, when you see Horford and Hayward and Morris and Baines and Kyrie, that's not a bad, that unit, they can handle each other okay. It's the other guys that can't handle them. So it's either Kyrie goes and they stay and we build, and I don't really mind that either. If you take all their players and take Kyrie or Brett, that's not a bad team to build from. So the conundrum is, which one do you do? Do you keep Kyrie if you're Danny Ainge and Brad, and the other guys have to go? I can't see the other guys staying with Kyrie there. They've got to, because the chemistry on that team is broken. And I think Tatum and Brown and Rozier, they have damaged themselves as far as how you respond to them as a player by how they reacted this season in terms of Kyrie.
Yeah, I think Rozier's gone for sure.
100%.
But
I don't think there's any scenario where we keep Terry.
I think we've said this quite a few times on this show. We've talked about how Kyrie, much like Westbrook, probably isn't going to win the whole thing as the best player on his team. And he really doesn't bring out the best in the young talent. So I don't think that we should hold on to him. I think you build off of the young core that you have. I think I would be all right with if they did somehow manage to get Anthony Davis, but other than that, I'm not interested.
So I think that there's obviously legitimacy to what you're saying, and I understand the viewpoint of how there's a fracture in chemistry between the young guys and Kyrie. I think it's very obvious and very blatant in terms of what those lines are between Terry and Kyrie, and Terry really illuminated what wasn't there in his post-game and his post-season, his exit interviews, saying, I had to sacrifice most out of everyone. And there was a lot of underground comments that came out to some reporters that were like unnamed, where Kyrie was incredibly hard to get along with. I feel like most of those comments were probably, based on the context that you could draw from them, were probably Terry. I feel
like we didn't really need to hear that from him.
Right, but it's fine. I mean, whatever. He's having issues with the season. That's fine. I think he's going to have a better year and better career trajectory if he goes elsewhere. The Celtics fans, I think they'll respect Terry and respect the Celtics from moving and going separate ways. What is a little bit different about the relationship in two completely different ways between the other two young guys, being Jalen and Tatum with Kyrie, is one, is Tatum and Kyrie get along great. They're like very good friends. They're like, in terms of bonding off the court, those had an immediate relationship that looked like, okay, this is good. This is the type of camaraderie you want your two players to have, your current star player and hopefully your future star player, to be able to build a relationship, a trust, and a bond together. But it didn't really come to fruition on the court. So I understand that's where that is. And on the other end of the stick with Jalen, I think he kind of overcame that. With Jalen, I'm very confident in Jalen. Jalen was the best player in this series against the Bucks, and he played fantastic. And I think when media and speculative talk is happening about Kyrie Irving around Jalen, Jalen handles it very professionally. He knows what to say. He knows how to handle himself and not look like he's taking any slights on the team. So I think that the end vision, if it is a deal for Anthony Davis, where one or both of those guys has to go, maybe a discussion on the lottery could affect what the treasure trove of assets Boston has to offer an Anthony Davis package. Maybe that would alter whether or not you have to give both. Maybe we get to keep one. I think regardless, there's a pretty open window to moving past this really defunct lack of chemistry. And that was such the clear core issue of the Celtics basketball foils this season that I think moving into next year, I think we're going to throw the kitchen sink at Anthony Davis. And like I said, I don't know if they're going to have to trade both Jalen and Tatum. I mean, based off of the value that Tatum lacked to boost himself this postseason, but on the other flip of the coin, the way Jalen did boost his, I don't know how the Pelicans will be gauging their value. Let's say that we have to give up both. That's fine. We get them both out of there. Then we're not going to have to worry about any potential chemistry issues between young guys and Kyrie.
It's a money matchup if
Right.
it's just those two, though.
No, you would need to include other players. I'm really hoping that they would be able to do it and finagle it. We saw earlier in the season with Daryl Morey signing like 15 random people to a couple $1 million. There's ways that you can really bust your way around it. But the thing is, if Anthony Davis comes to town, I think a lot of the issues that the fan base has in terms of their perception of the locker room and the team in general, and probably the locker room itself, will be relieved. I think the microscope that Kyrie Irving is having on how his mindset is a reflection of the team's performance, I think that won't matter as much if he's the second fiddle. If his every drop and word isn't sat on because the weight of performance and the weight of where he's going and all of that, and if he's signed for a longer team deal and he comes back because he's with Anthony Davis, any naysayer and any delineation that you can make from Kyrie Irving will not be as important because of Anthony Davis's presence. And I think that will be fine.
Something that'll improve the chemistry, and I picked this up from reading and seeing stuff, is that it is a fact that Brad Stevens never reached this team. He never reached them as a unit and developed them the way a coach should. And one of the reasons for that is that they didn't have assistant coaches that could play the role of big brother, disciplinarian, hearing issues, sorting them out in terms of Walter McCarty. So Walter McCarty, being an ex-player, played that role on that team. And Micah did not, and neither does Larinaga. So that and Stevens cannot be expected
They're too nice. It's a nice group of guys.
Who should they bring in? Who should they bring in, Mike?
Well,
who should
they should bring in Perk.
Perk, absolutely.
And I think Perk's a real good one, but James Posey is another one, and he's out there.
Bring both of them in.
Either one of them, and you put them in the locker room, and you address chemistry that way by bringing those type of guys in to now have somebody that's a bridge between Brad and the players that the players can talk to.
Absolutely.
And I think that would be really important.
I think you're 1,000% right. I think that type of a move would absolutely be a Band-Aid.
It's going to happen. They got the opening for Micah. You watch.
Exactly.
I don't know. Can it be Perk after the way he criticized them?
No, it absolutely can. Perk has been lobbying for a coaching job in the NBA, and I think that
But he's also called out Kyrie pretty strong.
But that's fine. I think that his reputation among players and among the NBA elite alike is very high. And if you listen to him talk about the game, he's well educated. Some of his opinions aren't 1,000% on base, but that's okay. I think that he has a promising outlook.
Do you think that Kyrie has come to the realization that he is always going to be second banana?
He's going to be Robin to Batman.
Do you think but if he hasn't come to that realization, then that's a problem.
Well, there's already
it would really help.
There's already rumors that he's willing to go to the Lakers.
Yeah, but I think that he doesn't need to come to the realization that he'll never be the best player. I think as long as he knows,
not the best player, just not.
I think he could get there. I think he could understand.
And Hoffman and Hayward never played that role with him.
I need someone who is alike to my abilities or a little bit better so that we can do this together. If that's what Kyrie thinks, that's okay, even if he's wrong. I think that is a good enough step forward.
Also, like the pieces around him, like they sort of enacted this identity of a jump shooting team, and they can't rebound the ball. So when they go through elongated slumps, you can't just chuck them up and then hope and pray that they're knocked down. But if you have Anthony Davis, he's one of the best rebounders in the league.
And also the rim protection. The rim protection is important to that team. They don't have enough rim protection.
The rim, and he would definitely ensure a better floor spacing.
Right. So what I'm best case scenario is I don't want to trade Jalen. I don't want to trade Marcus. I'm thinking you trade Al Horford on a re-signed contract that's smaller.
Yeah, because Horford said he wants to come back.
He does want to come back, and I would love to have him back. But you could come back, bring him back on a smaller contract.
It's a win-win bringing him back.
Trade him and Tatum. And some
Marcus wants to come back too.
How about? I don't like this either. Just I have a little trouble coming to grips with a bunch of these guys in terms of an all-time Celtics fan for as long as I've been a Celtics fan, and the Celtics way, and Bill Russell and Bob Cousy and John Havlicek, and not seeing that in Kyrie at all, and not really seeing that in Tatum or Brown or Rozier either, and that's bothering me a little bit. How Kyrie, he's got us over a barrel right now. We can't do anything until he lets us know what he's going to do.
I don't think that's true.
Well, why don't it get taken care of behind closed doors? I don't think it's going.
I really don't think that's true at all.
You don't think it's going to July 1st and then we find out what Kyrie's going to do?
I think that we're going to need to make a decision on whether we're going to pursue Anthony Davis before we know whether or not Kyrie's going to sign. And I think that Danny is going to go to Kyrie and say, hey, we're going to make a push. We're going to attempt to trade for Anthony Davis right now. If we land Anthony Davis, then we can talk. I hope that we can come to an agreement that this is a championship caliber team that you've sought for in the past 2 years, the one that you are hoping to build here. We can mend any fence that you have that mentally that may be burned, and you can move past it, and we can be a championship caliber team. I think that he goes to him. I think they do the trade, and then July 1st.
Well, I think they've been
kissing his butt.
I think they've been kind of kissing his butt, or at least, sort of what's the word for it? P-footing. I don't even want to say.
Like that.
But like Ainge has been, very purposely delicate around this whole Kyrie thing, because I think he knows that there's a possibility they'll be in on the Davis sweepstakes. So I think if they didn't think that they were going to be a runner for or in the running for Davis, they would have been a lot worse.
Such a
with-
complex issue because
They would have benched Kyrie, I think.
are we in the running for Davis without Kyrie? Yes, probably not.
Yes, absolutely. What
We
do you
are.
mean? How does that doesn't affect that trade? Where you can still trade for him.
I think it
would just be-
affects
Yeah.
Davis's.
That's what I mean.
yeah,
His
exactly.
desire to come.
the
But it's still a
team.
I
trade.
think they make the trade
Yeah.
regardless of. I don't know.
Yeah.
What do you think happens? Prediction, then we'll spin it on. We spent a while.
Oh my God, it's such a flip. I mean, my gut tells me I'd rather see Kyrie go and have them build with a core that's there. So I'm going to go with my gut. I'd rather Kyrie goes, and I don't need a world championship next year. I need a return to Celtics pride.
Okay.
That's also what I think is going to happen. I don't think Davis is coming here. So
I think they trade for Davis. I think
All
we
right.
have the Bex package. We're going to do it.
I
we'll
don't mind
see. Put
doing
it on the board. Put it on the post-it note.
Yeah, we're posting that. All right, the Eastern Conference Finals. The Celtics got defeated by the number 1 seed Milwaukee Bucks, and the Toronto Raptors, after one of the most remarkable buzzer beaters that we've seen, I guess
Ever?
this postseason is compared to this postseason. Been crazy for buzzer beaters with the Damian Lillard
The
buzzer
shot
beater.
heard around the world.
And now the quadruple bounce doink game winner fade away from the right wing, falling out of bounds. Kawhi Leonard had enough time to squat on the ground as it was in the air. It falls. They win 92-90 in Game 7. That was the first ever Game 7 buzzer beater shot from Kawhi Leonard. He showed a lot of emotion after the shot. Let out a big yell, big scream.
But by the time he was interviewed, he didn't have any more emotion.
he let it all out. He let
that was gone.
got
It
it
was
all
gone
out.
by then. I was really excited.
Yeah.
Kawhi,
Oh, yeah, I like that shot.
that game was, I thought,
Good
in the
interview.
series in general, especially towards the end of it, made me a little nervous about the Toronto Raptors in this series. I thought coming into the postseason that I liked their road to the finals a little bit better than Milwaukee's. And I kind of was more confident in the team that they had and the pieces that they were showing and their ability to make it the distance. But what I was seeing, especially in Game 7 and through parts of the second half of the Toronto Philly series, was the lack of presence from anyone on the team that wasn't Kyrie Irving. And there was flashes of signs depending on the game, whether it was defensively from Gasol on Embiid or Lowry was scrappy on games here and there. And Siakam, we're not sure if he's 100% healthy, but he showed his speed in certain games. But in this Game 7, it was very clear that Kawhi was the only player that was willing to take a shot. And that really followed through. He had 39 shot attempts. He had a 40-point game, but everyone complains about efficiency in this NBA.
Yeah, he missed 23 shots.
But he kind of needed
Didn't
to
bother
do
me.
that for exactly. It didn't bother me either. You could tell
They were in a
he
good
was
flow.
their only option, and him doing that every time was the right move for them. And it was big enough for the moment for them to get carried past. So with what you saw in the Toronto Philly series, how do you think Kawhi and the Toronto Raptors match up against Giannis and the Milwaukee Bucks?
I think someone else is going to have to step up. I mean, I liked what I saw from Ibaka. He had just enough to chip in, and he was big on the offensive boards. They had 16 offensive rebounds. So that's one of the reasons why they made it through. And they also took about 22 more shots
They took way more shots.
because Philly wasn't taking care of the ball.
Philly
so
only took 65 shots.
Philly, in a lot of ways, bailed this Raptors team out. And Kawhi definitely bailed them out, too, because a lot of those Raptors were afraid in the moment. You could tell Pascal.
He was passing off as
He
soon as he
was.
caught it.
He wasn't spicy P. He was passive P.
Yes.
Because he was just every time he got the ball, he had absolutely no confidence in his shot, and you could tell he's not right because he's not getting the legs under the ball, and he's not making those explosive
Might
moves.
be
to the
Spin isn't
basket.
as fast.
Might be
Yeah.
inexperience.
And you got nothing out of Danny Green. You know, it was
They
a
had benched him a lot.
combination of Pascal.
I like the big lineup. I like the Toronto big lineup.
Absolutely. The combination of Pascal and Lowry went 8 of 24.
Yeah.
So, you know, besides Ibaka's 17 points, nobody else scored more than 10 or 11. So you need players to step up around Kawhi. He's not going to be able to sustain this kind of usage against a massively deep Bucks team
better
that can
defense.
run and gun
Yeah.
and plays better defense than Philly. You're not going to get bailed out by the Bucks. No.
A lot of the same feelings. I liked the veteran presence of Gasol and Ibaka in terms of you put that together with Kawhi, and they've got something in terms of their ability to handle the situation. Gasol hit a big three, and I think
Ibaka hit some big threes.
and Ibaka played strong.
That one three where he was
So
like,
you've got that, and that rebound he got off Embiid.
Yep.
It was
Huge.
major.
Huge.
And so I think that's a good factor there. But how do they match up against the Bucks? In terms of what I like about the Bucks is that Giannis doesn't have to score for them to. Their game plan doesn't have to be points from Giannis. He was going whole quarters against the Celtics. He was going big blocks of time. He can score 21 points and take 11 shots or 12 shots, get fouled when he's going in there, where Kawhi may have to take 40 shots. At what point that guy is, I don't know if there's a physically more fit guy in that league than Kawhi Leonard, because, man, he looked just as strong taking that last shot as he did the first 38 that he took. It's amazing how
He
strong
reminds
he
me
is.
a lot of Jordan.
And at the same time,
because of his conditioning and his
movements.
His movements. He's very
Stronger than that,
methodical.
though.
He's very mechanical.
and at the
with
same
his
time, he's
shot.
playing Butler down the other end.
No, he was remarkable. I mean, Kawhi
So
was the best player in the
he's
league.
shutting down
Best
Butler
player in
down the other end,
Best player in the
working real hard and taking all this on him. It's a tough call. I give the edge to the Bucks. You got to. Was their bench real? Is Mirotic and Hill and Connaughton and Ilyasova, is that real? If that's real, it certainly trumps the Toronto bench that they got going
And the
right now.
Bucks are better coached too.
Yes.
Budenholzer has showed that this year he's
awesome.
the best coach in the league, and
Yeah.
Brett Brown is absolutely
Well, he's
no
gone.
contest.
Yeah, but that's Philadelphia. Oh, I mean, as far as who he was
As
going
far
against.
as like opposing coaches,
Yeah,
you
that-
saw the
we'll talk
Sixers.
about that when we get to
the
Philly.
Sixers on both sides of the court were a little stagnant. They weren't. They took Embiid out of the game completely with their low post defense.
Oh, yeah.
And then on the drive, you got people like Lowry stepping up and taking charges, and on the other side of the court, Lowry getting offensive rebounds. I mean, it was a full team
We'll see how
effort.
strong they are defensively. They may be a strong defensive team, Toronto. And,
Well, I
They
think
are.
they
when
are.
you put that together,
It's like the Sixers
that's
have
what I'm
maybe
saying.
the best offensive
we
starting
haven't got to
five,
Philly
but
yet, but
Toronto's got probably the best.
look at Philly's
defensive
3
starting
possessions
five.
in a row in the clutch with the shot clock ran
that
out.
was embarrassing.
And
That was great
I
defense.
mean, we'll talk about what the problems that Philly had doing stuff, but they were well played.
They were
Well, a
pressured.
lot of the time they forced Redick and Embiid into a pick and roll type game
Wi-
out, 2
Without
feet
Redick
beyond
being
the
open.
3-point line, and Pascal was right on JJ, and because JJ doesn't need much
Right.
release space.
You couldn't even hand off to him.
I was really impressed with him.
I think that the series is going to go deep. I can see a 7-gamer. I think that you're going to see Kawhi and Giannis guarding each other on both ends of the court a lot, which I think is going to be remarkable. I do think that you hit it right on the head. I do think we're going to see several games with Kawhi taking 33-plus field goal attempts, because that's going to be the nature of what the Raptors and Bucks alike are yielding to him. And I think we're going to see several games where the Bucks win and Giannis isn't going to have a huge offensive output. But I think that at the end of the day, it's going to come down to, because we know that Kawhi is going to be phenomenal, and I think that it's clear that the Bucks will have enough strong shooting games to win them at least a couple. Giannis will probably have one big game that he wins on himself. So what it's going to come down to is whether enough of the supporting cast on Toronto can show up to win it in 7 games. And in the beginning of the playoffs, like I said, I was willing to say yes, I think that can happen. Based off of what I've seen now, I don't think that it will. And I think I got Milwaukee, especially the fact that they have the home court. I understand that depending on what series and what team you're watching, home court may not matter as much. But I think that Milwaukee ends up getting the W in 7 based off of some lack of performance from either, and probably Lowry, and maybe Siakam again. But Gasol, I'm not sure what they're going to get out of him. And then their bench.
They got
has-
45 minutes out of him
has-
yesterday.
Their bench has been completely absent and a huge question mark. You're dealing with big problems when Van Fleet and Ibaka before this final game have been complete no-shows. So I think based off of what we've seen in the postseason so far, I'm leaning my meter closer to the Milwaukee Bucks.
It'd be really
game five.
interesting to see how they choose to defend on Giannis, and whether they'll pick up on Boston's success with building the wall, or Boston's success with putting Horford on him and putting Lopez on him instead of, or whether they're going to have to play the game different than that.
They could use OG.
Will they have to
use
bring?
OG back?
will
What's
they-
the recovery time for
Will
appendicitis?
they will they have to bring a Barker in? Gasol with a wall, or will they have to bring a Barker in?
They have a lot of bodies to throw
You know,
at Giannis. They got Pascal,
But,
Kawhi. They got a lot of guys that can guard him.
If their
theoretically.
strategy, like some guys are saying, is look, you got to keep Giannis out of the paint. I don't think that's doable. I don't think you can keep.
No,
Giannis.
he's too good.
Maybe
He's too
Kawhi
good.
can, and if he can get into the paint, there it is. That's Milwaukee's strength right there. Giannis getting into the paint, and it doesn't look like anything can stop him from getting into the paint.
At the same time, your argument could be, I think Kawhi is the best player in the league, and I think that he's going to win them the series. And I would be like,
Yeah,
that's fine. I
yeah.
believe
Well,
you.
it could go either way.
100%, you know?
All right, I got $50 on Milwaukee.
50
'cause
bucks on Milwaukee.
This one
How
guy,
many games?
I think 7.
7 games, Milwaukee.
I think we're gonna get a full 7 out of
How
this
many
one.
games? Who wins?
I want a 7-game series. I love the star power. I can't wait to see those guys on the same court. I go with the Bucks in 7.
Okay, I'm switching my pick. You guys both got Bucks. I want the Raptors. 7
Nah,
games. I'm switching.
okay.
Well, next week I might.
I was figuring one of you was going to pick the Raptors.
I want
Yeah,
a good
well,
series.
Let's do coaching discussion. I don't really care about the Houston Rockets that much. We have 2 new coaches today hired or yesterday. It was comical. Last week it hadn't happened officially, but everyone was expecting Ty Lue to be hired as the Lakers' new basketball head coach. He even had a Lakers birthday cake. But they lowballed him on the offer of an amount of years, and they undermined his credibility and his legitimacy as an actual NBA head coach candidate by saying, we're going to be giving you the staff that you'll be having, and we're going to be putting Jason Kidd as your assistant coach. Ty Lue backed away, saying, you're disrespecting me. I'm more than just LeBron's coach. I deserve a 5-year deal and basically a contract commensurate with an NBA champion head coach. So they moved on through the scuttlebutt discussions with Lionel Hollins and the likes of a lot of other dredges in terms of where the coaches reside that are free agents. And they landed Frank Vogel, who's, I would say, probably the definition of an average coach. His reputation is a defensive coach, even though he's been an average offensive coach as well. But in terms of a defensive coach, both his 2 most recent jobs that he's left, the team has hired another defensive coach after him in Nate McMillan and then in Steve Clifford, who has skyrocketed those teams' defense from the year that Vogel was coaching. So how strong of a defensive coach is he really? And on the other side of the coin, how much responsibility and much of a voice is Vogel really going to have with the Lakers now that they, just like they said they were going to do for Ty Lue, put Jason Kidd in as the assistant? I think it's a really interesting discussion.
It is.
We don't know how qualified Jason Kidd is. His coaching chops have been very, very terrible. I think he's kind of hanging on by the thread of his career as a player rather than his career as a thing.
How is he going to survive with LeBron?
I think that LeBron has
Vogel?
Kid.
I mean,
Vogel,
LeBron.
I can see him.
That's the big question. The big question is, what is their plan for Jason Kidd? Is he the heir apparent?
He looks like a
Why
usurper.
are they doing this?
That's what makes no sense to me.
Why are they doing
LeBron's
this?
going to laugh him off of the court.
Why does Jason Kidd have to be there?
I think that
what does he bring to the table?
I think they wanted
other
to
than
hire,
he's going to become the coach.
I think they wanted to hire Jason Kidd, but Jason Kidd's kind of a crap human being who's done terrible things in
So
the past.
the fan base and everybody rebelled
Right,
against
he's
him.
like a convicted criminal for like beating
Yes,
his
he
wife
is.
and stuff.
Yeah,
Like,
he
he's a
did
terrible,
DUI
he's like a
and,
terrible guy. He's like a terrible guy. So I bet you Jeannie Buss was just like, I don't want the optics of this guy being our head
Well,
coach.
I think the
but
fans responded, too.
I like the things that he said in our interview, and he's going to be a good mentor for
Since
Lonzo
when do you
Ball.
hire 2 head
So let's
coaches?
make a-
Since when do you hire a head coach and then you also had to hire the other guy you interviewed with him?
Well, I mean,
That
that's
doesn't
hap-
happen.
I think
that's
this
happened
just
before, it's
further
just weird.
perpetuates how awful that organization
Yes,
is right now. It's
yes.
such a crap show.
It is. It is.
It's almost like a kid
Where's-
running a team on NBA 2K.
Yes.
Like, oh, offensive coach, get Kid in there.
Right.
And it's like, no, that's not going to work.
Ty Lue, I know he's got the 2 years at $5 million each from Cleveland, so maybe that's why. But why did he deserve a 5-year contract? And for him to say that he's an NBA championship coach, he is not an NBA championship coach. He took that season over from Blatt. Blatt prepared the team. He got the team while it was already running. He didn't take them from scratch, and then they won a world championship. I don't, an interim
I
coach.
don't give Lou credit because LeBron did it, not Kai Lou.
I mean, there were
Preseason,
moments
developing the team,
when-
developing all the schemes and stuff. That's done well before Lou took that team over. Lou didn't put anything into that
I
team.
agree with you.
He babysat what was there.
I wouldn't give Ty Lue a 5-year contract, but I'm not the
But
NBA GM
Tyler should have
because-
taken a 3 year, is what I'm saying.
No, he doesn't need it. He has plenty of money.
He's got the
I
$5
don't-
million a
he
year
doesn't
for
want
2
the
years.
disrespect. He doesn't want the anxiety. I don't blame
Right,
him for that.
I
get
don't
that.
blame either side. I don't blame Tyronn for saying I need more money because
Right.
he knows what kind of a
And I
crap
don't-
show it
and-
is too.
and-
I don't blame both sides.
I don't blame the Lakers for not paying him.
Is
Exactly.
Linda Rambis.
Well, okay, so
Who is Linda Rambis?
Right
I know
now,
she's
the Lakers-
Kurt Rambis' wife, but why is she got? Is
The-
she
the Lakers-
Jeannie's best friend or
yes, the
something?
Lakers brass is a huge issue for this organization. It seems like it's a 5-pointed star of Jeannie Buss, of Rob Pelinka, of the 2 Rambises, Kurt and Linda.
The 2
And
Rambises.
then of Phil Jackson, who apparently
I know.
is having a lot of, he's their shadow
Well, that's
owner
Jeannie
in their back.
Buss's significant other.
No, they're no
was.
longer together. They
Right,
just
but
get
they
along.
were really.
Oh my God, these
I know.
people.
Are they starting a reality show maybe?
But Linda
They're,
Rambis.
they're living in the limelight of Lakers exceptionalism, and they're becoming more and more blinded by it, and they're unwilling to step outside of their box to hopefully get to a stage where their team with the current pieces that they have, the current bones in terms of player personnel that this Lakers team has is promising and should be exciting, and they should be able to get any coach they want, and they should be willing to pay any amount of coach they should have, and they should have a strong GM with a good resume lined up, and they don't have any of that because these five people don't know what they're doing.
Instead, we're like, who's going to get alienated
The
next?
writing is on the wall. Everybody sees it. Does Jeannie Buss have the strength to fire Palenka?
No, she doesn't. He's going to stay.
There it is. There it is. If he's there.
If this team succeeds, it's going to be in spite of the ownership, not because of it.
Well, it's not.
That's why we're hearing that LeBron might want to go somewhere else.
Yeah, so,
they might trade
He
Ben
hasn't
Simmons for
requested
him.
trade, but it's be
not-
other coaching hire. The Cleveland Cavaliers hired Jim Beeline from Michigan. What do you think about the hire?
I think it's a real bad hire.
Bad hire. Wow,
Horrible
bad hire.
I
Wasn't
think it's a
expecting
really
that.
bad hire.
Wow.
I think at 66 years old, I'm really surprised.
old. He's old.
I followed him. He used to coach in upstate New York. I think he coached at Canisius and everything. Then he went to West Virginia, and he was kind of like a backwoods type guy. And I know there's other guys. I mean, Brown's from Maine. And
There's
I'm
an
not-
older guy running the country.
But anyways, I was surprised when he went to Michigan. I said the same thing. Man, he's not. The big city's not going to be good for him, or the Big Ten in terms of. And I think the same thing's going to happen. But the major thing that I think the problem is that he's an offensive coach, and he's had to bring in defensive support at Michigan.
That's okay.
Well,
Why is that a problem? You can bring
yeah,
in defensive help
but
on Cleveland.
I
You
think
can get defensive assistant coaches.
him coming to Cleveland, needing that defensive support, that's so key and so vital.
Yeah, so they go out and hire a
Well,
defensive
what
coach.
makes you think they're going to make that happen?
I don't hate the hire because
I do.
I think that he has a strong
He's
reputation.
a Casper Milquetoast
Really?
Shay.
He has a
He's
str-
not.
he has a
He's not a
strong-
strong coach.
He has a strong reputation among players. He's been
college.
and he's proven to have
It's easy.
some monochrome of good player development skills. He's brought in recruits in Trey Burke and Tim Hardaway Jr. and Karis LeVert, all of whom were not top 200 recruits, I believe, and made all of them lottery picks under the growth that he had in Michigan. I think that the idea of bringing in a college-centered, young player-focused, offensively
man.
infused. I understand he's old. Who cares? There's plenty of coaches in the league that are over the age of 60. That's not really that big of a deal. I think
it
that
is.
he could potentially have a
Old
good
man.
effect on a young team. I think if a college coach jumps up to the pros, I think it makes sense to match them with a younger team that's hoping to develop and grow. And I think the Cleveland Cavaliers, who are likely going to have a top 3 pick, we'll find out tomorrow. I think that it's a good pairing.
Thumbs down.
I agree with you. I don't think he's that great of a coach.
Well, then
but
why does that work?
Because I just think it's a good pairing in terms of what the framework is. I don't know.
They don't have much to lose. I think
Yes,
they got a
exactly,
lot
exactly.
to
They
work
got nothing
with,
to lose.
and I think he's going to develop their young talent.
Yeah.
They're not trying to make the world's, the world
you're not
champions
trying to-
in 2 years.
That's destined for failure.
I don't want to talk about Houston. Skip it. I don't care about them.
I like Houston. I like talking.
Big
to
3 trivia.
All right, big three.
We could talk about Houston.
Houston failed twice.
So
Same thing. They're
Kawhi
doing the same thing they
Leonard's
failed.
243 points in the conference semifinals are the third most in a series post-merger since 1977.
In a series.
Yes, in a playoff series since 1977. Name 3 of the other 4 highest scoring players in conference semifinal series since 1977.
Kareem.
Kareem is number 1. He had 260 points in 1977.
LeBron against Detroit.
Yes, LeBron, 241 points. So he's number 4. So we got one number 2 and one number 5.
Michael Jordan.
Yes, Michael Jordan had 246 points. Do you know what year?
I would
Maybe it was
assume
Larry's year.
Knicks.
1993.
No, not the Knicks.
Not the Knicks. All right, let's see. Damian Lillard and Kevin Durant have both gone for 50 burgers this NBA playoffs. There are 3 active NBA players who have gone for 51 or more in the past 3 seasons in the playoffs. And all 3 either did not make the playoffs at all this season or have played for teams that have already been eliminated at this point. So
LeBron?
name the 3 players who have gone for 51 or more.
LeBron.
Yes. 51
I
points
got the easy one. Thanks
last
for
year.
giving me the easy one.
Russell Westbrook.
Russell Westbrook, 51 points 2 years ago.
You said all 3 are not in it right now,
All
right?
3 are not in it. We know him well.
Yeah, I can't think.
Kyrie Irving.
No. Any guesses?
3 years ago.
Former Celtic.
Oladipo.
years ago?
Isaiah Thomas in
Isaiah
2017
Thomas,
had a
of course.
53-point night.
Yeah, we watched that game, boy. That was a good game.
Seems so long ago now.
So Isaiah seems so long ago.
Name the big three active career leaders in free throw percentage.
Active,
Yes.
J.J. Redick.
J.J. Redick, number 2,
Steph.
890. Steph, number 1,
Damian Lillard.
90.4. And Damian Lillard,
Yeah, he's awesome.
888. Some pretty good free throw
Awesome.
shooters.
Dame has the
All right.
highest volume.
Onward bound.
Yes, I agree. All right, sure. It comes up twice. We'll talk about
Good
it.
Lord.
The game was
Why do
three
you want to talk
times.
about them?
I don't know. I just think that they have the least to change. They're not going to change anything coming in next year. You think they're going to change a bunch? You think they're going to trade something? You think they're going to sign new players?
But I don't. I think that's a positive thing.
It just feels like
I-
D'Antoni is like this generation's Jerry Sloan because they just can't
Yeah.
get over the Warriors hump.
And I think that they
That's
could.
not that bad.
I just think that we know what this team is. It's a team with an elite offensive engine. It's a team that, as long as they have James Harden and shooters around him, they're going to be a perennial home court team in the playoffs. And depending if the ball bounces their way on a given night, that could make it to the
Yeah, but
finals.
there's a big change coming. Golden State might not be the same team.
Yeah, but
and that opens the door
but nothing-
completely for Houston to
right,
be
but
exactly
nothing-
like they
but
are.
exactly, nothing's
and
changing
win.
about
Sixers-
Houston.
No, nothing's going to change. But I think that I think you got
That's
to
why I don't
acknowledge.
think they're interesting. I think
But,
nothing's
not-
changing.
not- but I mean, a lot of people are saying blow it up, and I'm saying stick with the plan. I think what I'm seeing there is realistic to stay with the way they play. I like that starting
so-
five.
so the
I like
people-
PJ Tucker and
No, I love
Gordon.
PJ Tucker. So the people that are saying blowing up are really harping on Capella and are also harping on Chris Paul. Do
I
you
know.
think that they should look to move Chris Paul or Clint Capella? I don't think they will.
Clint
but do you think they're
Capella,
gonna do it?
yeah,
No.
I think so. They gave him too much money. He doesn't do anything
like this deal.
offensively.
I think the team. I think Harden's in his prime, and if they add more depth along with Rivers on the bench, I think that they could well be the favorite
I don't
next year
think
in
it's
the
about
West.
the ball
they'll be the favorite.
going,
I think they can.
bouncing their way. I think they got dismantled by Steph Curry and Klay Thompson.
And I agree with D'Antoni, but Sloan was always knocking on the door, and I think Houston still is knocking on the door right
Yeah,
now.
they're
I don't,
knocking. I just
I
don't
don't,
know if it's
I
ever
don't
gonna
think
open.
they're-
I don't know if it's
I
ever
don't
gonna
think
open.
they're feeling like, man, we're never going to win. I think they're feeling like, let's take another shot at this.
Well, with that
Harden's in his prime.
Rockets Warriors series, I feel like as soon as KD went down, everyone was so quick to hop down.
Not me.
Immediately, it's going to be Houston's going to win Game 6, and it's going to go to 7, and Houston's going to have a chance because they don't have Kevin Durant. And it's just like, oh, well, now you're motivating this team that won 73 games.
73 and 9.
That didn't have Kevin Durant.
Yep.
I understand they're not as deep, and I understand that at times this postseason, both Steph Curry and Klay Thompson have not been shooting the ball well. But I think that was more the nature of the offense that was being revolved around Kevin Durant first and around Steph Curry and their type of basketball second.
Yep.
But as soon as that's gone, they're just going to go back to being the team that they're very familiar and very capable of becoming yet again. I didn't think that.
Who's going to go back to being the team they were? Golden State or
Golden State.
Yeah.
So I wasn't surprised
Right.
in the least amount that they
I'm
took that
getting a
game
little
from them.
sick of these former players' hyperbolic and exaggerated statements, like Paul Pierce saying after Game 1 that the series was over against the Bucks,
Yeah, they get paid to
and
do
then
that.
Charles Barkley saying that they
All
get
of them.
paid for good insight, though. That's not good
That's
insight.
why you gotta turn
and
the
then, and
sound
then
down.
Barkley saying the
some
Warriors have
music on.
0 chance with Durant going down. Like,
Yeah,
they-
it's hard.
Listen to some
God.
music.
I like
instead.
Hubie Brown.
I'll spin it. I'm done with
Hubie.
Houston. They're not
Okay.
going to change anything drastic.
No, but I think
Did we already talk about
We already
Boston?
talked. That was the first half hour.
Let's go Philly.
The Philadelphia 76ers. See, this is a team where a lot of stuff could change.
Oh, God, yeah.
They go down in 7 to a heartbreaking buzzer beater.
So it's
As
more
we-
interesting,
As
really.
we discussed, heartbreaking buzzer beater hit by Kawhi Leonard. If it's 2 inches off, then we're probably rewarding how strong of a play that we've had in this postseason from Jimmy Butler, who was much aligned in the regular season, and the phenomenal play of Embiid overall, even though he suffered from a whole slew of ailments on
Feel
the course
so
of the
bad for
series.
that guy.
Embiid was a plus 80 when he was on the court, and I think in like the 100 minutes that he was off the court, they were like a negative 105.
They were outscored by 109 in the
109. They were
99
minus-
minutes
yeah.
that he was on the bench.
They were minus 109.
That
was
almost seems
terrible.
made up.
That's how
It's
great
a
that guy is.
ridiculous number. And at times he wasn't able to assert himself offensively. But I think it was because of the load that he had really amassed, probably from Game 1 all the way to where he is now. I think that that's an obvious change that the Philadelphia 76ers will be employing next year. I think that they're going to be much more cautious from the start of the year to playoffs with load management, with resting games, and with taking longer than necessary to really handle and adhere to a plan around his health. So I think that's an immediate change. I guarantee.
Couple things stand in the way of that.
I guarantee going into next postseason, Joel Embiid will be more consistently healthy.
Couple things stand in the way of that, Shay. One is Brown. You're out of Brown. You're talking about developing a team into the playoffs next year that is going to be. He hasn't showed me that he takes care of those things. That team was so poorly prepared in the last 5 minutes of regulation in that game.
It was awful.
They got nothing, and the only thing they got is Butler's breakaway, 3 24-second violations, and Embiid's snake up and under. That's all they got in the last 5 minutes.
He's pretty abysmal.
They weren't going to win that overtime. I don't think
think they were.
The other thing, Shay, the other thing.
The Raptors were running on fumes.
Kawhi was not running on fumes. Anyways, the other thing. Let me say the other. The other thing is Embiid's health. And Embiid, you've got his back, you've got his knee,
it's a huge issue.
You've got whatever's going on respiratory. It's a huge issue. I'm continuously. I hate to say Hubbard, but I'm seeing that the way he's moving is more and more mechanical in terms of how his back is bending and how his legs are moving. It's looking more and more like Roy Hibbert.
He's rigid. Yeah, it's
As good as
crazy.
he is,
It's
he's
crazy
amazing.
that Philadelphia has.
He's incredible.
Philadelphia has 5
But
centers.
how do you rest him? So let me just finish this.
5 centers, and he played 45 minutes.
But they're not good. They need
They're not
they need
playable.
somebody else to back him up, that's paramount on that team. They've got to bring somebody in that can share time with Embiid.
I think they will.
I don't know where they go. I don't know.
It's just sad because
maybe they will. I hope they address that.
the starting 5, which was heralded so widely as one of the best starting 5s of all time, they only had 5 games total going into the playoffs. 5 games playing together. So it's like you'd really like to see them roll it out again with this roster and get a couple of reinforcements on the bench, because Greg Monroe for 3 minutes is not going to spell Embiid, and it's not going to help your team.
Johnson's
The fact that they have 5 centers and Embiid played
Marjanovic
43 minutes is crazy.
Right. And maybe there'll be a development from a player like Jonah Bolden coming into next year. Maybe he'll have greater defensive chops. But I do think that they'll probably be signing someone that is just a bench level center. Maybe,
they need Aaron Baines.
I was literally just going to say maybe they'll steal away Aaron Baines, and that could be the type of player that they look after, a cheaper option. In terms of the other pieces on this team, how do you consider the rumors that have been swirling and the discussion that has really been revolving Ben Simmons? And what do you think about the potential ability for them to bring back both Jimmy Butler and Tobias Harris, or just one of those guys?
I think Jimmy Butler and Tobias Harris would be more likely to come back if Simmons left. Because I don't think Simmons makes him a better player in their offense. Like, I don't think he develops their offense.
One more so than the other.
Is Simmons still there? I didn't really notice.
Yes,
I think Butler.
He played
I think Butler should
41 minutes
absolutely
and
be
took 5
their
shots. 41 minutes.
priority.
He was an incredible
I'm
defender.
saying Simmons goes and Kemba Walker comes in.
Yeah, okay, but then they're not going to have enough money to do
They
that.
must be able to trade Simmons.
So yes, that they would have to trade Ben Simmons, but if they're
They wouldn't have
if
enough.
they're
No, I think Harris goes.
Oh, okay. So both Simmons and Harris
Yeah,
are gone.
yeah.
They keep Jimmy Butler, they keep
bring in
Embiid, and
Kemba.
they sign Kemba.
And
That's
they
your
bring
vision.
in an Aaron Baines or whatever it is.
Right, they need a
And
backup center.
I'm pretty comfortable with that.
I think, despite what we've seen this postseason in terms of what was the differentiation coming into the postseason between Tobias Harris and Jimmy Butler and the fit that they had in this roster, based off of what we know now after 2 series, it really flipped, because I thought the fit in terms of what mold of a player Tobias Harris was made more sense with the other pieces in this 5 for Philadelphia. But what we're seeing is none of these players can create their own shot besides Jimmy Butler. At the end of the game, you're going to Jimmy Butler. Jimmy Butler's defensive chop matters a lot more. So in the scheme of playoffs, Jimmy becomes more valuable. With that said, I think that they're more likely to bring back Tobias, and I think that another team is more likely to be able to poach Jimmy Butler.
Wow.
I think at the end of the day, I do think if I had to bet money, I think that Tobias definitely stays, and as of right now, I would say they bring back Jimmy, but in a week, I think I could say Jimmy's going to LA, Jimmy's going to New York, and Jimmy's going somewhere else.
I think Brown you don't really want to deal with, I guess, but I think
No, we can touch on
there's so much going
on
wrong
Brett
on that
Brown.
team. And there's he's like the president of the United States. I told you before, he aged 20 years in the last year. Look at his face. Look at him. He's
Brett
actually
Brown-
good. But Shay, he made some bad blunders in that series. And
Yeah,
one of them was, I'll
absolutely.
tell you, and it's very simple and it's very subtle, but T.J. McConnell should have been playing.
should have played more. I agree
T.J.
1,000%.
McConnell should have been playing. He never should have had Jimmy Butler on the point without having developed that to
I
a
agree
point.
with
He held the ball so long, and then he had no chance of getting anywhere late in the shot clock.
Out of timeouts,
With
they
the
had
game
24-second
on the
shot
line.
clock.
But they never filtered McConnell in. McConnell would have been so valuable in that situation. They didn't know who to take out.
There's absolutely a handful of things that are negatives that you can say about Brett Brown
But
that he
there's-
failed to do this postseason.
But
and
it's
I
not all on him.
And I understand everything. I just think that when you look at it and you look at the free agency class of coaches that we had, we just discussed what a mishmash it was for the Los Angeles Lakers
But
to
there
even
are-
find a credible candidate. There's not a candidate out there that's better for the Philadelphia 76ers
There might not
than
be.
Brett Brown.
But-
so they should stick
but
with
I
what
can
they
tell you
have
the type of
because
coach.
he's been there the long haul. He's familiar with the players. The players
No,
love him.
no.
They have
I
a good relationship.
yeah, but
I understand that he doesn't have it
Just
all there.
like
He
they-
doesn't have it all
It's a
there.
bad time
Just
to
like
go
the
back to
Milwaukee
the
loved
board.
their guy. Milwaukee liked their substitute guy too.
No,
before.
no, he didn't. It was just Giannis. Giannis was the only one that liked Kid.
Anyways, Luke Walton would have been a nice fit. That's the type of coach I think would be a nice fit. I'm thinking Patrick Ewing. I'm thinking,
No.
yeah, I'm thinking that other pro that's in the
No.
G League right now.
Jerry Stackhouse?
Stackhouse.
He went to Vanderbilt.
Stackhouse.
He's at Vanderbilt.
He's at Vanderbilt. But I think they need to make that move. He's done.
I think
He's
they're missing-
cooked.
I don't think
he's
he's-
cooked. He's burnt.
Why? Coaches
He's
can,
fried.
Coaches can get better.
Can you see it? Look at the guy.
Can coaches not get better? Can coaches not grow?
It's not that. He's worn out. He's beaten up by the job.
I think that.
Can't you see it?
All right, you're out on him. We get it.
I think.
Yeah, I know, but-
I don't think he gets fired. I think if they lost in embarrassing fashion, I think that absolutely would have been a road that Philadelphia took. But it wasn't. I thought Philadelphia fought well in this series. I think that they did a good job overall. I understand there's obviously management of game issues that happened down the stretch that are really to detriment of Brett Brown. But he's going to stay. Embiid is there. We're hearing discussions of that and a lot of emphasis from fans that maybe Ben Simmons should get shopped. I think that
I think he should.
I think that we're going to hear a lot of rumors of him being in trade discussions this offseason. But at the end of the day, I don't think that they're going to end up moving him because either they don't find value that's commensurate with what they believe his value to be, or at the end of the day, that they're not going to think it's worth it. I think that we're going to see him come up with LeBron trade rumors, which I've already started. I think that he's going to be in rumors for Anthony Davis. And I think that he could end up being in rumors for Bradley Beal if Bradley Beal gets into
And I think that's on Brett Brown. I think Brett Brown has done a really poor job with Simmons.
Why didn't Ben Simmons play center minutes?
They should have
It's
done
not
something.
Brett
They should
Brown's
have done-
fault that
during
Ben
the
Simmons
season,
hasn't created a
during the last 2
semblance of
years.
a jump shot.
Why you can't? The shot is so bad, obviously.
That's okay.
But it reflects on. It
not okay
changes
for
the
this team.
game, and Brown had to be responsible for that. He had to be
Okay,
responsible
the
for how he played.
Denver Nuggets heartbreakingly lose. Everyone continues to doubt the Portland Trailblazers. We had
Speaking of overworked big men,
yes, we
poor
had
Jokic is still huffing
remarkable playoffs, superstar playoffs from Nikola Jokic, averaging nearly 30, 15, and 9 on 50, 40, 90 efficiency. He was remarkable, but in the final game, tragic missed free throw and
CJ McCollum going otherworldly.
CJ
Second
McCollum
game he's done that.
going nuclear, and then a couple pitfalls from Jamal Murray and Gary Harris, and specifically Torrey Craig offensively with very unusual shot selection in that game, ended up being the downfall of the Denver Nuggets. With the rocky road that they had in terms of not being a playoff team at all last year, overperforming this season, being a 2 seed, being really, really underrated by the majority of analysts and critics alike, some had them going out in the first round, and from what they've overcome, and from now Jokic really rising up into the spotlight, them not making it to the Western Conference Finals, is that a big deal, and is this year a failure or a success for them?
No, this is still a great success for them, and I think they're going to be great for many years to come with this nucleus. I think they need somebody else to step up. Jokic can't be
Score.
the
They need a
only
scorer.
one scoring.
They need a scorer.
Jamal Murray did not do that in Game 7. Unfortunately, he went invisible when they needed him the most.
He's inconsistent.
He did have one clutch shot that got them sort of within 2, but Jokic, again, missed a free throw. So, I mean, Denver was up 17 in the second quarter in this
That
game.
means nothing.
And
That happened in the other game too.
but
That
they
happened
were
in the Philly game, too.
2 of 17 or 2 of 19 from
Yeah,
three-point
the only
land.
3-point
Portland
makes
wasn't
were,
much better.
were Jokic.
And Portland was
was-
4 of 26.
It was a rock fight in terms of performance.
Yeah, they were both missing a lot of shots, but I think, Western Conference Finals teams don't miss free throws in the clutch. They don't miss 11 free throws in Game 7s. They don't miss that many three-pointers. So
I agree with Sloan that the season was a success, but I do see some problems with Denver. And the biggest problem I see, I think Portland was a perfect matchup for them. And I think the things that Jokic was able to do, he wasn't necessarily going to be able to do against other teams.
No, these are
you
two
know,
weak
with
defensive
Cantor
teams.
and Collins in there, and they didn't do it. They didn't do a good job, but they didn't do a good job flying to him when he had the ball. He pretty much was able to operate down there, and he's not the quickest guy in the row. I know he's great. All his moves are awesome, but I would have had to see him against a better defensive scheme. No. And if you ever took his game away on that team, Murray had a great playoffs, but he did not show up yesterday.
He's still a kid.
I think
it really hurt. They had nowhere to go at the end of the game.
No, I think you're absolutely right.
They couldn't find it. They had nobody to go to.
Both the Spurs and the Portland Trailblazers were very, very gentle and fluffy in terms of a playoff matchup for what you're expecting on the defensive end on the other side of the floor. Jokic did great to deal with what he had. He handled what he was dealt with until the Game 7. I think that it's obvious that basically they don't need to change much coming into next year.
No.
I hope that it's just going to be
nice core.
some sustained, prolonged health from Gary Harris is probably going to bring him back into the limelight as more of a performer, a playmaker, and eventually shot taker for them as he was at the end of last season.
Shay, who was he playing defensively? Was he still playing Lillard in that
was
game?
playing
Or
Lillard.
did he shift him to McCollum?
No, it was the other way around. Gary
Yeah,
Harris was guarding McCollum in the first three quarters, and they switched Torrey Craig onto him in the fourth.
Okay.
I thought both Craig and
Craig did
Gary Harris
Harris
played
did a nice job on
fantastic
Lillard.
defense
Lillard.
on both Lillard and
Yeah.
McCollum. McCollum was just making some incredibly
great.
difficult shots.
they were really not even letting Lillard touch the ball.
No,
I mean,
yeah, they were denying him the ball
swarming him.
altogether. And Torrey Craig was really good. What really saddens me about this, and I do think overall the season is a success, but what is really heartbreaking is I think that they were a much better matchup against the Golden State Warriors. I don't think either team would be able to take them down, but having those two perimeter defenders, having that Craig, Gary Harris, being able to contain a dynamic backcourt in Steph and Clay would have been so much more promising, and not even talking about how well offensively talented big men perform against the Golden State Warriors.
Yeah.
We've seen Karl Towns, Anthony Davis, Joel Embiid, Nikola Jokic. These are the type of players that really have been the star few that have been able to decimate the Warriors in terms of a single performance to take them out.
But,
I know we're not talking-
they would also make them run, though, and I
I
don't
mean,
know if they can
we're
really
also-
keep up with them.
We're
when
not
they're
talking
running.
about the Warriors, but we are talking about the Warriors.
Could've
And
made it into
look what the Warriors could do. I mean, Durant's out, and he's out for a couple games, and who knows?
Not coming back till Game 5.
Game 5. Wow. Well, then but if
we
he
can
was
bring it-
actually there, if they ever put that lineup at the Hampton 5 in there, what do you do with Cantor? How do you play
Cantor doesn't
Cantor
play. Cantor
against
can't
that
play.
Hampton
Can't
5?
play
Iguodala and there's no matchup there
Cantor
at
was
all.
a perfect match
I think,
against the
I think that they
against Denver.
maybe they'll take a small swing at someone in free agency. I think they'll probably
They need a wing.
they'll probably
We
bring
talked
back-
about that. They need a scoring
they'll-
wing.
Well, they'll probably bring back Paul Millsap on a smaller deal. Michael Porter Jr. is supposedly healthy. He's going to play
Yeah,
in the
he's
summer
there all the
league.
time.
He
Millsap
could be
missed
that
a
scorer.
huge three.
He could be that scorer for them. Everyone is still regaling Porter as a potential 20-point per game scorer in this league. At his size, as a potential two-guard playmaker esque guy, he's that perfect role. So for the Western Conference Finals, we only got a couple minutes. Just overall, do you think that the Blazers can get more than one game? Everyone, I believe you've been the highest on them in the postseason. I've doubted them more than I should have. I love the team. I love Portland. I've just thought that their horses wouldn't have been enough at both stages that they ended up getting past. It's clear of how strong their identity and chemistry is able to carry them. Can they get 2 games? Can they get 3?
Dame and CJ step up against this Warriors team, and I think it's going to be a lot more fun to watch than a lot of people are giving them credit for. They've had great inputs and performances from their role players. Evan Turner really showed up yesterday.
Random.
Ennis Cantor,
Is Hood
great
okay?
rebounds. Very random. Yeah, he's very one of the
Hood's
most
injury.
underrated
Tell me.
players.
I just had a notification and went away. I don't know. I thought.
But
it
I
was
think they
not-
stand a
not
chance.
serious.
I got my Lillard jersey coming in the mail. I'm a bandwagon fan right now.
Do they get more
Big
than a
time.
game?
With Durant out, I think they get 2 games. And just very quickly, out of Aminu, Harkness, Collins, Turner, Hood, and Curry, they need 3 of those guys to step up
You're
big.
right. You're right. I think that they get. I mean, my mind's telling me.
And that's a real if.
My mind's telling me Warriors in 5, but my heart's saying 6, so I'm going 6. And
Golden State plays well without Durant.
They're 2-2 in the regular season. They play very well in
Draymond's
the-
playing really well.
We'll close it
I hate
out
to close it with
the,
that.
the
I'm sorry.
No,
I
we'll close it out
apologize.
with the lottery. The lottery is tomorrow. Do you think that there's a big surprise coming? Obviously, New York, Cleveland, Phoenix, those are the teams that have the highest probability of landing the number 1 pick selection.
Cleveland can't possibly get another one.
Well,
please no.
Where this becomes interesting is how high the Lakers drop, who are
Yes.
or drop or rise, who
You
are
don't
at
want them getting
11.
beneath
Whether the
assets.
Sacramento pick at 14 can get higher, whether that
Yes.
Dallas pick that's yielded to Atlanta can get in the top 4, and then Luka can get paired with another top 4
Big
talent.
markets are going to get
What
big
is
rigged for
interesting
them.
you about the lottery tomorrow, and what do you think could be a surprise?
It's the ping pong balls. I mean, I don't have any other interest other than watching the ping pong balls and seeing where they were, and then analyzing it afterward. Other than the Celtics' position with the Kings and the Grizz, there's nothing there for me to watch.
Knicks,
It's just
Philly,
where they
and
fall.
Lakers will all be happy.
Where they
Knicks,
fall. And then
Philly, and Lakers.
They're all going to
Philly?
be. They're all going to be happy.
How is Philly going to be happy? Are they going to get the number 1 pick?
No, Phoenix. No,
I was going to
no,
say
sorry.
what? I was
They're
like,
all
what?
going to be happy.
Okay, give me a surprise pick, lottery. Something surprise.
Something surprise.
me a surprise.
New Orleans number 2.
Number 2, New Orleans. I like it.
That'd be awesome. I'll say, yeah, Knicks. I'll
Knicks
go
get the
safe.
number 1 pick.
Knicks number 1.
Everyone's going to be super disappointed. Wizards are going to get the number 1 pick.
Whoa.
People are going to be really upset.
Very disappointed.
Enjoy your, I believe both series start, one of the series starts on Tuesday.
Tomorrow,
which is
yeah, I thought
tomorrow.
they were both Wednesday.
And
I
go
think
Bruins.
that's why the lottery is going to be but just before the game. Enjoy your basketball. Enjoy the Bruins. Adios.
Let go and you can't hold